discuss out the issue of Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, the sanctity of Eretz Israel. What does that mean? Two basic questions, right? Is a person required to go and live there? Is that one of the mitzvot of the Torah? That's one question. The other question is, if a person already lives there, is he allowed to leave for some reason? Or he has to stay there? That's the question, right? These two questions are very central issues that are discussed by many rabbis of many different generations, because these questions always pop up, especially nowadays that there's a lot of people there already. So the question is, the ones who are in the diaspora, the Jews, are they required to go there now? Should they go? Should they leave their businesses and their homes and everything, go over there, pack their bags? Are they required to do that? Or they're not really so required to do that? So we have to, that's something we're going to investigate. So first we start out, right, with the Rambam. So the Rambam says in Hilchot Melachim, in the Laws of Kings, in the 5th chapter, Halacha Tet, 9. So it says over there like this, right, language of the Rambam. Asur letzet meretz Yisrael lechutz ha'aretz le'olam. So he says, right, that you're never allowed to leave Eretz Israel to go to diaspora. The Rambam says. Never allowed to leave. That's what he says, right? Ela lilmod Torah or lisa isha. There's two reasons why you can leave Eretz Israel. There's more than two actually, but I'm reading you two now. One is to learn Torah. If he wants to study Torah outside of the land of Israel, he's allowed to leave for that reason. Now you may ask, right, obvious question is, why would a person want to leave Israel to study Torah? There's a lot of Torah over there. In fact, the Torah over there, right, is better than the Torah over here. So then why would he want to leave, right? I'm sorry, yes.
So I have the question is this. So when Moses told his son up on the hill, and it says, go into all the lands.
Actually, what he told them to do was to take them into Eretz Israel. That's what he told them to do. Not to all the lands. To Eretz Israel, took them.
I thought it was to go everywhere.
No.
And to flourish.
This wasn't a multi-country tour. Right? This was a permanent settlement into the land of Israel. That's what it was.
Okay.
Getting back to what we said, says the Rambam, to study Torah you're allowed to leave. So the question is, why would you want to leave to study Torah?
Right.
So the answer is, the Gemara answers that sometimes a person can't study in a certain place so well. Why? Because he didn't find the right rabbi. He doesn't have the right guidance, the right teacher. So therefore he has to go somewhere where he finds. That's what it is. A person can learn only from the rabbi that he likes, the rabbi that he enjoys studying with, right? And that's the reason why he needs to go there instead of being in Eretz Israel, because he doesn't find the right rabbi there.
But I'm sure in all of Israel he could find a rabbi.
He can't. That's the whole point, right? He can't find. So he knows, right? There's a special rabbi over there, right? In Borough Park or whatever, in Crown Heights or wherever it is, right? He found somebody in Flatbush, whatever, wherever it may be, right? Those areas. He went over to marry a woman, right? So now again, right? The same question comes up, obviously, right? Well, you can't find a girl in Israel, right? Actually, there's much better than what we have over here.
Yeah, they got guns.
So right? So if that's the case, why can't he find a girl over there that he has to go somewhere else? So the answer is because here also, right, a wife is a very personal thing. Not everybody's fitting for everybody. So sometimes a person has to change his location in order to find the right mate. That's the idea, you know what I mean? So therefore he goes and there's only one lady that fits that person.
Right.
So he can't just marry anybody he feels like. Right. They won't be compatible. They'll get divorced. They'll break up. A person only has really one shidduch, one real mate that's soulmate, that he's supposed to take. So because of that, right, he may not find his soulmate in Israel. He has to find her somewhere else, wherever she may be. So he has to travel. This is exactly what happened with Yaakov Avinu. Right? Yaakov Avinu, what happened? That he had to leave Eretz Israel to find his mate, who was Rachel, and Leah. Then he married Leah also. But the point was, right, that he couldn't find in Eretz Israel, so he had to leave. He had to go out. So here also, a person may have to leave sometimes to find his right mate. Like the Chazal said, right, the sages said that sometimes what happens is that the two people who are destined to be married together, one of them is in this one country, the other one is found in a different country, so one of them has to travel in order to, right? Somebody's got to move. So sometimes it's the guy that has to go, sometimes it's the girl, whatever it is. The whole point is, right, that sometimes you got to travel, so that's the reason why. So therefore you're allowed to leave Eretz Israel in order to find a woman to marry.
Were you allowed to leave Israel to travel too?
I'm sorry?
You're allowed to leave Israel just to travel?
We're going to talk about that, but just want to mention first like these things with these reasons of the Rambam, and then we're going to get to those reasons as well. Remind me. So it says like this, right, that can live in Eretz Israel, just like in the beginning. So, as we said, right, this is also a third reason why he's allowed to leave Eretz Israel. Fourth reason, says the Rambam, so what does that mean? He's allowed to go to make some money. What does that mean? He goes to make a business deal, he cuts a deal, business, whatever, and then once he finishes the deal, he has to go back to Eretz Israel, right? He's got to go back. So I'm say after that. Says the Rambam after that, אבל לשכון בחוץ לארץ אסור אלא אם כן חזק שם הרעב עד שנעשה שווה דינר. So he says, but to stay in the diaspora, right? Just to stay there without coming back, that's not allowed unless there's a famine in Eretz Israel. That's what he says, right? It has to be like a famine situation where there's not food, there's no money, there's no food. A person cannot live like that, right? Just the conditions are impossible. So if the conditions are impossible, says the Rambam, you're allowed to stay also there until the situation changes, because you can't live like that in these conditions like that. We don't want you to go to Eretz Israel, to kill yourself. Right? You should live by them. What does that mean? The HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the mitzvot that we should live by them, not to die by them. So that's the whole point. So since we have to live by them, so you can't go to a place where you can't live. It's not possible, right? So therefore, we're going to waive that mitzvah until the situation economic gets better, and then we can come back. But until then, he's not obligated to come back. Interesting, right? Okay, so then he goes on to say the Rambam that because the verse says that that's what a person should do, right? He should very much want to be in the land of Israel. His heart should be so much into it that he can do things like this, which are seem to be irrational, somewhat irrational, somewhat ridiculous. But anyway, to show how much a person loves, appreciates the land of Israel. So therefore they say that a person, even the rabbis were doing even things like this. Then it goes on to say even more. Right? That something amazing. It says, right, that whoever lives in the land of Israel, all his sins are forgiven. Can you imagine? This is a big thing. A person does a lot of sins, he does sins every day, and then all of a sudden, right, because he lives in Eretz Israel, everything is forgiven. Unbelievable, right? This is an unbelievable idea. Is that
what God says?
Yes, so it says furthermore, right? So look what it also says, right? That whoever is buried there, it also atones for him. The fact that he's buried there.
Well, you're not going to get buried there unless you die there.
That's why a lot of people who don't die there, they're buried there. They take them on the plane, El Al, you know how it is, right? They take them on El Al, and they bury them there.
Somebody don't got to watch.
And nevertheless, right? What happens is like this. There's two opinions over there. That one opinion states, by the way, there's also Gemara which says the opposite of that. Gemara says that it's not good to take dead bodies into Eretz Israel. Why? Because you're polluting the land. It's like a pollution. It's like a contamination. Because dead bodies are impure. They give impurity. So the one rabbi was complaining, right, in the Talmud, that they're bringing now their dead bodies over here, to contaminate the land. Still, it's considered to be a very good deal to be buried there, as well. But they say the Chazal, it's not the same thing that a person who lived there from the beginning when he was alive. It doesn't equal, right, to the person who just came there when he died. What does that mean? When you come there after death, it's not the same. Good what you say. They say after death, right? That's not really the same level. Even though it does atone for a person somewhat, but he doesn't get the same reward and the same merits as a person who comes there when he's alive and lives there.
You can't atone for
when he's alive, right? It's a bigger atonement. When he comes there when he's living, it's a bigger atonement. You understand? So therefore, right? That's the idea. So comes the Rambam and teaches us, right, all these things, and we have more things to learn about this, right? better to be in Israel. Can you imagine? And then it says, you know what it says? That a person who leaves Eretz Israel and goes to diaspora, it's like he serves idols. It's like he becomes an idolater. Right? So it's considered, can you imagine?
If you're born,
you leave, right? You're serving idols.
it's like serving idols?
Right, yeah, it's like serving idols.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, right? Okay, so let me explain to you how that works, right? It seems to be like something a little bit far-fetched, right?
Yes.
A little strong.
So what's the idea? Why is it considered like idolatry?
Right.
Because what happens is, right, that in Eretz Israel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rules over the land directly, without any intermediary. But in the diaspora, there is a prince, heavenly angel, that's appointed to rule over that land. And the person who lives in outside of the land of Israel, it's like he serves idols, as if. Not that he really is serving idols, it doesn't mean literally. But it's like similar to that. It's similar to that concept. That's what it says. Okay.
Doesn't mean doing idolatry.
Right, exactly. But it's like it, it's similar to. So it says, right, that David HaMelech complains that when he had to leave Eretz Israel to run away from his pursuers, right, Shaul, who was pursuing him, so he said, right, that they threw me out of the land of Israel to go, right, and serve foreign gods. What does it mean? Well, he went to serve idolatry over there? No, but a person who goes to outside of Eretz Israel is considered like doing idolatry. So that's why David HaMelech made this statement.
I'm sorry, what if you have a very good reason to leave?
That's why you got to come on time. We already discussed that. Okay, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Anyway, where you have old non-Jews, like somewhere in one of these villages, where all the people are not Jewish. They're Druzy, right? Whatever, they're Druzy, whatever. Better to be in those Druzy places over there with the Druze.
The Druids?
It's better to be over there than to be in Lakewood. Can you imagine to be in Lakewood or to be in Muncie, even though over there most people are Jewish there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the idea. It's an amazing
Concept.
It's an amazing concept, really, it really is. So he says, furthermore, after that, כשם שאסור לצאת מארץ חוץ לארץ, כך אסור לצאת מבבל שאר הארצות. So it goes on to say, right, that just like it's not allowed to leave Eretz Israel, to go to foreign land and find some terrorists over there, ISIS, right, whatever, Daesh, whatever, these kind of people you're going to find over there. That's what you're going to find. They maybe your head might be somewhere else.
Arab Jews.
So we're not talking about living there today, right? Obviously, that's a very different story altogether. Okay, so it goes on to say, right? The Rambam says even further. So let's first, before we go further, let's just summarize, right, for everything, right? Mitzvot, right, that we mentioned. Which is what? To learn Torah, to get married, to find a woman to get married, to go to do a business deal, right? Things like this. And then also we have, or to save property of Jews that was stolen by anti-Semites, so forth, things like this, right? This is what the Rambam says. Also in the Talmud we find another thing that you're allowed to leave Eretz Israel. Another mitzvah, which is what? For kivud aven, to honor your parents. What does that mean? Visit your mother, your father, make them happy a little bit, to see them once in a while. So you're allowed to leave Eretz Israel to go and visit them. Even though you have to leave Eretz Israel to do that, right? That's the idea. You're still allowed to do that, no problem.
To do that or bring them there?
Right, to bring them there, but they don't want to come there, right? That's the problem, you know what I mean? Sometimes they don't want to come, they're too, they're too established where they are, they don't want to move from the place, it's not comfortable for them, whatever it is. So therefore, right, they say you're allowed to leave in order to visit them and stuff like that, to help. The answer is that both of us are obligated to do the mitzvah of leaving Eretz Israel. Okay, even though nowadays we'll see if there's an obligation, but the point is we both have this mitzvah. So just like you have this mitzvah, I also have the mitzvah. So you should come with me. If you really want to be a good person, if you want to be a good Jew. If you don't want to come with me, that's not my problem. I got to do the will of God. So therefore, right, a person whose parents tell him don't go to Eretz Israel, he doesn't have to listen to them. Miss him and this and that, all kinds of things. He doesn't have to listen to them. He can go because he can tell them, listen, you're also obligated to go. What's his business? You're telling me, right, not to go.
They're going to plot against you to stay with them. This is
Yeah.
your mother,
Okay.
right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you understand? So basically, this is the idea. But now, right, there's a lot of issues here involved with this. So what would you think, by the way, if I told you all this? Live in Eretz Israel. That's what he says. Try to live there. Try to be there. You're not allowed to leave there. That's what he says. You're not. So
That's a lot of money.
that's a question. But on the other hand, right, what we find is that there's also another book of the Rambam, Sefer HaMitzvot, where he counts all mitzvot over there, 613 mitzvot. So the Rambam says over there, he brings all the mitzvot that there are in the Torah, 613, but there's one thing missing there, right? Which is what? It doesn't say over there there's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Israel. So in the book of mitzvot, he doesn't bring mitzvah it is, and then over there, all of a sudden he forgot about it, right? Well, not there at all, right? Missing in action. What's going on, right? What's the idea? So the answer is, Rabotai, some want to answer, some rabbis say answers that they give, but probably the best answer is like this, right? That the truth is, nowadays there's no obligation to live in Eretz Israel. There's no obligation to go there. So when was the obligation? The obligation was during the first temple, when most of the Jews were there, and there was the Bet HaMikdash, they built the Bet HaMikdash, and so it was like a total, Eretz Israel was totally settled and built up, and all the tribes were there in that time, and they were all land, this and that, they have a good life. They didn't want to come back. They said, what to come back? So they say, right, there's a story that I was told by Moran Rabbeinu, my rabbi. He told us that what happened was that Ezra Sofer, right, who was the leader, came to Yemen, to collect the Jews over there. He tells the Jews over there, come on, let's go home. Come home, home sweet home. So they told him, what home? This is our home. What are you talking about? What home are you talking about? So he couldn't convince them. They said, so he asked them, he said, why don't you want to come back? What, you don't want to in the Bet HaMikdash? You don't want to have a temple? You don't have to be in the land of Israel? You don't want all that? So what they said, you know what, we have a tradition, you know what we're talking about. You know very well that this second temple is also going to be destroyed. And they're going to go again into exile. We know there's a tradition like that. It's not going to last forever. So he says, why are you bothering us to leave now and then come back here again? What's the point of it? This is what they told them. We don't want to do that. We're already established over here. Now you're going to uproot us again, go again there, and then after the Holy Land. So got into like a heavy duty, skirmish, got skirmished over there, whatever. So what happened was that Ezra, got really mad with them. He cursed them, put a curse on them. Gave them a nice blessing, it's a euphemism, right? Gave them a nice big. And what was the blessing that he gave them, right? The curse that he cursed them?
Kabbalah.
So they say, right, the curse was several things. He cursed them, first of all, they should always be poor. They shouldn't have money.
Not us, them.
You understand? Not
I know.
them. Oh, he cursed them, they should always be poor. Can you imagine?
The Yemenite
always be in poverty.
The Yemenite Jews.
Yes. Then he cursed them also that they should always be downtrodden, like the people should hate them over there, discriminating against them. They should always be like second-class citizens over there. They have to walk on their feet. Not allowed to ride on an animal. All kinds of things like this. So they had a lot of discrimination going on.
Rabbis came from Timan.
True. So what happens is, right, that Ezra curses them. You understand? So then what do? What do they do to get him back? They also cursed him. They cursed him. He says, who are you to curse us? We'll curse you. Can you imagine such a thing like this? So they say that lo and behold, right, before Ezra came back to Eretz Israel, he died. Can you imagine? He wasn't even able to come back. Most of also our people, the Georgian Jews, didn't want to come back. A lot of them didn't come back. So they stayed there. Nothing happened. You understand? Huh? Yeah, they were doing well. They were established. Why now? Uproot everything and go again.
The whole Talmud came from that region. I mean, half of the majority.
I'm sorry. What was that again?
The Talmud came after the first temple, right?
You're talking what? In other words, right? The Talmud came from Iraq.
Persia, Iran, also.
Right. Iraq was the main.
Okay.
Whatever. Okay. Well, anyway, the point is, right, that now they say in the end, how many people really came back to the second temple? You know how many came back? Very paltry, meager amount. 40,000, about 40,000. Very, very, very.
I'm sorry.
Can you imagine?
Wasn't there one opinion in the first temple like 40 million Jews died?
Only a small minority of the Jews came back to the second temple. Basically, that's what it was. Most of them stayed in diaspora. So what do I care about that? That means that what? That really the whole country, right, was not rebuilt in the proper way in the second temple. It was, it was just something very partial. Then later on, as time went on, it got bigger and bigger. It grew. It grew exponentially. More and more people. In the end, there was millions and millions and millions of people there. But it started out with a paltry, meager amount. That's what happened. Why do I tell you that? Because since most of the people did not come back, therefore the laws of the land of Israel, institutions built up that we're supposed to have. We're still way behind on that, right? We have the Arab over there, right? The mixed multitude of all kinds of people. You know who they are, right? These people. I don't have to tell you, right? The Z word, right? The Z. Yeah, okay, so anyway, getting back to what we said. So what does that mean? That because the second temple was not really rebuilt properly in the proper way, the country, the whole nation was not rebuilt. So therefore, really, there was no obligation to live in Eretz Israel at that time anymore. The obligation really was ended in the first temple. So therefore, what happened was that basically most of the Jews stayed out, and not only that, it says in the Gemara something interesting. Where is this? Masechet Gittin. In the first chapter of Masechet Gittin in the Gemara, it says something interesting, right? That there was a city called Akko. So now you see something interesting there, right? That what? How is it that half the city was outside the land of Israel and people were living there? That means that there was no obligation to live in Eretz Israel. Why? Because if there was, how was half the city outside of Eretz Israel?
Right.
But you see that they did allow it because they felt that there was no obligation at that time. You understand? So we see from there that really there was no obligation to be in Eretz Israel. So the truth is, right, what the Rambam said to leave out in this book of mitzvot, the obligation of living in Eretz Israel, that's the reason why, because there is no obligation today. What does that mean? I'm sorry?
There are benefits, I'm sure.
Yeah, we talked about that. But what that means is that, on the one hand, if a person lives outside of Eretz Israel, you understand? Then now you're not allowed to leave. That's a different story. That's the Rambam says explicitly, right?
What if before you go you stipulate that you're going to come back?
Doesn't work. It doesn't help with stipulation, right? You cannot stipulate against the Torah. So what that means is that there's ways. But anyway, the point is that in a general way,
look for a
right? There's plenty of them over there also. Don't worry. Now they have plenty of them, right? So you don't have to look around anywhere else. So what I'm telling you is right that if a person doesn't live there, he's not obligated to go there. But it is a mitzvah. What does that mean? Optionally, if you want to go and do optional mitzvah to live there, it's a very, very commendable thing, very, very praiseworthy, but not obligated. Right? On the one hand. On the other hand, once you're there, you're not allowed to leave. It's the breakdown of the mitzvah. Right. But there's one issue here, right? Which is what? That if you look in the... By the way, where does Rambam get these laws from? He didn't bring them down from the sky, right? He wasn't like Moshe Rabbeinu, he from God. Where did he get them from? He got them from the Talmud. Right? Where do we find this in the Talmud? In Masechet Avodah Zarah, in Yud Gimel, right? The 13th tractate Avodah Zarah, page 13. Over there, it talks about this. Right. So, what does that mean? That according to Talmud, this is the law. But you know what? There's also another interpretation of this law from a different rabbi.
Here comes the twist.
Who is this rabbi? His name is Rabbi Achai. Rabbi Achai Gaon. It means like questions, whatever. So the point is that this rabbi, in his book Shirtut, which is considered to be, by the way, very authoritative. This rabbi is considered to be like top-notch, authoritative rabbi. Why is that? Because he was very close to the Talmud, not far away.
Right.
So he has a tradition. So he writes over there that you're allowed to leave Eretz Israel for any mitzvah. Doesn't matter which mitzvah it is. In other words, according to Rambam, it's only those mitzvot, apparently, that we mentioned. According to Shirtut, you're allowed to leave for any mitzvah. So what will be the practical difference, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say a person, right, has relatives. He lives in Israel, but his relatives lives in New York, right? So they invite him to come for a tut. Apparently, he'll be allowed to do that. Why? Because going to a wedding also there's a mitzvah there.
Right.
To be mesameach chatan v'kala, to make them happy, the groom and the bride, so forth and so on. There's mitzvot there going on, right?
That was the question, can you leave just for the fun of it?
Right, so we're going to talk about that just in 1 second, right? Just in 1 second, because first of all, right, to tell you that according to the Shel Tut, for any mitzvah you're allowed to leave. So the question is, right, okay, we have on one side we have Shel Tut, and then we have the Rambam on the other side. Who's the halacha like? Yeah, that's the question, right? So it gets a little bit.
We have a bar mitzvah.
It gets a little bit complicated. Later on, he wrote like more stringent.
Maybe he changed opinion.
I think you're right. I agree with you. So, what does that mean? There's actually different answers offered up for this question, right? But the best answer is what you said. What does that mean? That he writes a book.
Right.
It happens. And in the earlier parts of his work, he writes one opinion, and then later on, as he writes more and more, he changes his mind.
More
you know
information.
Well, yeah, more information, more, yeah, exactly, yeah, everything, right? More depth, whatever. So now, right, he changes his mind. So then later on in the book, he writes a different opinion. In the same book, same work, but it seems like to contradict each other. So what we say is like this, right? That's the question. We're going to discuss that, right? We're going to talk about that. This is the question over here, right? So what I'm telling you is like this, right? That the Rambam himself seems to have had like both ideas here. Why? Because he saw the Shel Tut. Shel Tut was before him, so he saw it, right? Shel Tut was a very prominent work, a very important work. So what he did was the Rambam. He said, you know what? Let's go like the Shel Tut. But later on, he changed his mind. Why did he change his mind? You know why? Because the truth is, right? If you look in the Talmud, in the Gemara that we mentioned, it's really implied against the Shel Tut. What does that mean? Talmud seems to say only for those mitzvot, not for other mitzvot. Talmud is saying like that, like the Rambam, second opinion. So then, right, what happened with the Shel Tut? Why? He went against the Gemara? He went against the Talmud? You cannot do that. Right? So why did he do that? So Shel Tut, you know what his logic is? Brings down Tosfot, his logic. The logic of the Shel Tut is that he says that those things that the Gemara listed, those mitzvot, it's just an example. Just a few examples. But really there's more. Different issue, which is that what? That in the Talmud, the language of the Talmud doesn't apply like that. Doesn't apply like the Shel Tut. It says only those mitzvot, So therefore the Rambam didn't like the Shel Tut. He went against. There's also something more here, right? Which is what? That most of the Rishonim, they came after the Rambam, they agree with the Rambam. Who's that? The Tosfot, the Rashba, right? Who else was there, right? There was a few more. Tosfot, the Rashba, and the Rosh also. They all went like the Rambam. And the Rif also. Right? Many Rishonim. Why is that? Because the truth is, right, when you look at the Gemara, when you look at the Talmud, clear at all. So, now, what about the Shulchan Aruch? What do you find over there? You find also in the Shulchan Aruch that he goes like the Rambam as well. So even though he saw the Shel Tut, the Shulchan Aruch, obviously, he saw it, but he didn't go like it. So it comes out, halacha is for sure like the opinion of the Rambam. That what? That you're only allowed to leave for those mitzvot, and not the other mitzvot. Right? So therefore the halacha is like that. It's very clear, right? So what does that mean? That if a person is already there, he should not leave except for these mitzvot. You know what I mean? Otherwise, instead, what about just to take a vacation? Right? So actually there's, you may chuckle, but the truth is that a lot of people do this. Yeah.
It was a vacation spot in the
right, exactly. But they see the grass is always green on the other side. They see us as a vacation. We see them as a vacation. You know what I mean?
Grass
everybody sees, exactly. Yeah.
And actually, it's not from God. It's from the rabbis.
I don't know, man.
Talmud is the rabbis, right, Rabbi? It's the rabbis.
Sure. They're all rabbis. Baruch Hashem.
They make up the rules.
They're all rabbis. Here we have also another rabbi. Here, there he is. Right, there he is.
Make up the rules.
This is our favorite rabbi over here. So now comes right. He's a good guy. This guy. So,
nice guy.
Pure soul. So you guys are all pure souls. Okay, whatever. But anyway, the point is right that as we said, there's two questions that come up. Your question, which is what? Are you allowed to take a vacation? There's also another question, right, which comes up as well. which is, are you allowed to go to the diaspora, leave Eretz Israel, to visit your friend? Like you miss your friend. You have like a good friend over there, buddy. Best friend. I got to see this. All kinds of things like this. He wants to take a rest. You should try to do it in Eretz Israel if he lives there. You should try doing it. Don't leave Eretz Israel. Don't leave Eretz Israel to just take a vacation. Don't go to Mexico, right? Don't go, to these places. Cancun, Bangun, all these places, whatever, right? All these, whatever. The Riviera, right? Exactly, all these things, So a person should try to vacation in Eretz Israel if he lives there. That's the idea. By the way, the rabbi used to tell us this all the time, just like the Shulchan Aruch says, that a person is not allowed to leave Eretz Israel for vacation. Right? Even though a lot of people do that, by the way. Even a lot of rabbis do it, to be honest with you. A lot of rabbis do it. Admorim, Dayanim, all kinds of people like this, with big hats, big beards. They also go. But the truth is, according to halakha, it's not allowed. Yeah, sorry.
Or school.
Same thing.
You're not going to live there.
Right, they're going to pay you for that. You're going to get paid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're going to... so it's like, you're taking a temporary job.
Also,
which is okay.
Opportunity to make more money.
No, most important, you're bringing the knowledge back to the country.
All right, the technology, right? Yeah. That's what you're saying. Yeah, right. To build the land, because actually a lot of people do that. What he says, they go out. That's what Netanyahu did. The prime minister. He went to America to study. He learned a lot of things over there, and he brought it back with him. When he came back, his parents were living there in Boston. So he went to MIT. He went to these places. He learned some things there. He brought it back. A lot of people do that. There's a lot of bring back technology, all kinds of things.
Seeing the friend.
I'm sorry. So regarding these things, right? There is one opinion regarding seeing a friend. Who's that? Rabbeinu Tam. Says Rabbeinu Tam, you're allowed to leave the Eretz Yisrael to see your friend. Why is that? He says it's a mitzvah a little bit, but whatever. But okay. So anyway, the point is, right, that a person is not allowed to. So therefore, right, even though Rabbeinu Tam says that you're allowed to leave to see your friend, but the Shulchan Aruch, Big Yosef doesn't agree with that. Most of the Farshim don't agree with it. Most of the Rishonim don't agree with this. So therefore, the halacha is, right, that a person should not leave Eretz Yisrael to see his friend. So what does it come down to, right? I'll give you an example. Now, as you said, right, there's always ways to get around things also. So one way to do it, by the way, is like this, right? I can tell you that the chief rabbi used to tell us, the Rabbi Yosef, the current chief rabbi, used to tell us like this, right? That he used to sometimes go with his father when he was going to Europe, to give lectures over there to raise money. Things like alleviate the situation. You know what I mean? So a person, we see from there, by the way, that you're allowed to leave Eretz Israel to be a teacher, to teach Torah. Studying Torah and teaching Torah is the same thing. It's the same idea, right? Just like you're allowed to go to study, you're also allowed to teach. So therefore, this is the reason why, many rabbis leave Eretz Israel. They go to the diaspora, places where there's no rabbis there to teach Torah over there, to educate the masses, to educate the Jews over there.
Spread the word.
Right, like our friend was talking about over there. Right, over in these places, right? You gotta go sometimes. You gotta go. You gotta be like sometimes a little bit brave to go to these places, even though nobody wants to go there. Right? I'll give you an example. Right? What happened was that the Rabbi Man, he was called to go to Mitzrayim, to go to Egypt. Can you imagine? So Egypt at that time, when he went, was an enemy country. They had no peace treaty. You know what I mean? So when he went there to be a rabbi, they thought he was a spy. Can you imagine? The Egyptian government thought he was a spy. They said they planted this guy to spy on him.
Makes sense, though.
So they used to follow him everywhere he went. Can you imagine? The Egyptian CIA, used to follow him around everywhere. Where's he going? The binoculars, this, checking him out. Everywhere he went, got followed. Can you imagine? Like this is the way it was. Yeah, it's unbelievable, right?
Why?
So at that time there was no peace treaty, So, but even now, by the way, if you go to Egypt, because you see like the Jew coming there, they find it very suspicious. Especially if it's Israeli, somebody Israeli, it's very suspicious then. So they'll believe they'll trail you. They'll trail you very well over there.
Nothing there in Egypt. Was that to go to Egypt?
But in those days, yeah, you're right. Now there's nothing. It's a bunch of cockroaches over there. But in those days, understand, there was no peace treaty, so it was very dangerous to be there. They could arrest you. They do that, by the way. They arrest Israelis over there.
Never been there.
Try to give a lecture or something like that. Give some classes, so forth and so on. And then it's considered to be like leaving for a good cause. So bottom line is that a person has to know, right, that there's big holiness there. So a person should try to go there. Also, but as we said, right, that even though it's not an obligation nowadays to go there, Actually, there is in the contemporary authorities, right? There is a machloket. There's a dispute about that. I heard that according to Chazon Ish, even nowadays a person is obligated to go. But according to Rashi Feinstein, not obligated to go. It's machloket. But the truth is, right? According to what we said, right? All the sources that we brought, probably the better option was that you're not obligated to go in nowadays. But still, it's a very big mitzvah. Issues like this, so they're not really coming for the right reason, and unfortunately, a lot of them are also suffering because of that. The children are intermarrying with non-Jews and all kinds of things. You know how it is, right? Once you live in Israel, yeah, they get in this. There's a lot of intermarriage, and there's the interracial intermarriage. And they're getting absorbed into the sea of the non-Jews. That's what it is, right? They're losing their identity. They're losing their Judaism. They're losing everything. All right, yeah, exactly. So the point is, Rabbi, that a person living in Eretz Israel is a very, very, very great mitzvah. So a person should try his best to go there. But also, I want to tell you also that the people who did not go.
He said, I'm sorry, you think is it possible?
They feel very disgusted.
Right.
If you bring the
they're breaking the law, that's why.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right, I see what you mean. Yes, yes.
They feel like you just punched them. They want like to live in a la la land.
No, because they got shamed. That's why.
You know what it is? These people, unfortunately, I must tell you, right? Brainwash these people. The education system over there in Israel. This is what they brainwashed them to. To hate the Torah, to hate the Judaism. To be anti, right? They're trying to be anti-Torah, anti-Judaism,
Why?
Because they want to make a country over there which is based on secular, values. They're not interested. They're not interested, Even though, by the way, they didn't succeed with that. They didn't succeed because they failed. I mean, miserably. Because today it's becoming stronger and stronger. The religion over there becoming much, much stronger.
Why are they trying to do
so
that?
they did not succeed.